I shouldn't have seen the blood on the snow. But there it was, dark, fresh, streaking across the white path leading to the Duke's carriage door. I froze, breath clouding in the cold air, wondering if I should turn back. But his gloved hand extended toward me, calm, almost too calm. "Lady Marianne," the Duke murmured, voice smooth as winter silk. "You'll catch your death out here." I placed my hand in his, though my pulse hammered. "What happened?" "A deer," he said. Too quickly. The wind groaned between the bare trees behind him, carrying a faint whisper I could have sworn sounded like my name. Inside the carriage, warmth wrapped around us, but the unease clung like frost. His gaze lingered on me, it always did, as if he were memorizing my face. Or comparing it to someone else's. I reminded myself why I was here. I needed a husband before Christmas. Not for love, Lord knows I'd stopped believing in that, but to survive the ruin of my reputation, to escape the whispers following me through London streets like a shadow. The Duke of Winterbourne had proposed an arrangement. A marriage of convenience. A clean slate. A chance to rebuild my name. But the moment we stepped onto the estate grounds, dread seeped into my bones. The mansion rose from the snow like a slumbering beast, tall windows reflecting nothing but darkness. Candles flickered from inside, too many, too bright, like eyes watching my approach. And then, the first sign. A corner window on the third floor. A figure in a pale dress stood there, still, rigid, wrong. "Who is that?" I whispered. The Duke followed my gaze. His jaw tightened. "No one. That wing is sealed." But as we walked inside, the scent of iron followed us from the snow. The air shifted, cold sliding across my neck like fingers. A servant girl rushed forward to take my cloak, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. Her hands trembled. "Welcome to Winterbourne, my lady," she murmured. "We've been expecting you." She said it strangely. As if she wasn't the one expecting me. As if something else was. Down the hallway, a solitary portrait hung crooked. A woman in a winter gown. Her smile faint. Her skin pale. Her eyes familiar. My breath hitched. She looked exactly like me. And Christmas was still days away. The scream wasn't human. It tore through the corridor just past midnight, high, sharp, and full of a grief so raw it felt like claws dragging down my spine. I bolted upright in the guest chamber, heart pounding, breath shaking. The mansion lay silent again, too silent. The kind of silence that waits. Then came the second sound. A soft, deliberate tap, tap, tap on my door. My mouth went dry. "Who's there?" No answer. Only the handle twitching, slowly, like someone was testing it, savoring the moment. I slipped from bed, bare feet hitting the cold floor. The tapping stopped. A shadow slid beneath the door, thin as a thread, stretching toward me as if it were alive. I backed away until my spine hit the wall. "Marianne." The whispered voice seeped through the wood, female, breathless, familiar. When I yanked the door open, the hallway was empty, except for a trail of wet footprints leading toward the east wing. Small. Bare. As if someone had walked through snow and never dried off. The sealed wing. A shiver crawled up my arms. Something was terribly wrong in this house. The next morning, the Duke appeared at breakfast looking tired, almost frightened, though he attempted a smile. "Did you sleep well?" "No," I said plainly. Someone came to my door. His hand froze around his teacup. "Marianne, you mustn't wander at night. Winterbourne has its noises. Drafts. Old walls. Drafts don't whisper my name." His eyes snapped up, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, I saw guilt flicker there. Before he could answer, the servant girl from last night rushed in with a tray. She kept her head down, but as she leaned close, she whispered without moving her lips. "Don't go near the portrait gallery. She's awake." The tray rattled as she set it down. The Duke dismissed her sharply, but her warning lodged in my chest like a blade. Later, as snow thickened outside, I found myself drawn toward that forbidden hallway, toward the gallery filled with portraits of the woman who looked like me. I didn't touch the door. I only pressed my ear against it. Inside, something moved. Fabric dragging. A soft, cruel hum. And then, a whisper breathed right into the keyhole. "You took my plaque." The mirror shattered before my eyes. I hadn't touched it. The shards exploded outward, spraying cold glass across the floor, reflecting not my own terrified face but hers, Elizabeth's. Her eyes burned like embers, hollow and accusing. I stumbled backward, tripping over the carpet, and her reflection remained, grinning, alive. "Marianne," the voice came from the mirror itself, layered, echoing, impossible. "You shouldn't be here." I pressed my palms to my ears, trying to shut it out. The Duke appeared behind me, pale and trembling, his usual composure gone. She's bound to this house," he said, voice tight. To me. I thought she was gone. "She's here," I whispered, backing away. "She's in the glass." My eyes darted to the gallery. Every portrait seemed wrong. Their eyes flicked, their smiles stretched. One painting of a young bride shifted slowly, her head turning to follow me as I breathed. "Marianne, don't," the Duke grabbed my wrist, but his touch felt cold, as if he weren't fully present. Something heavy pressed at the back of my mind, making it hard to think, hard to move. A shadow peeled itself from the corner of the hall. Formless, fluid, but unmistakably human. Elizabeth. Her wedding gown dragged across the floor, torn and wet. She tilted her head, watching me with an expression of longing and fury entwined. "Why me?" I choked, voice barely a whisper. "Why do you want me?" Her lips curved into a cruel smile. "Because you look like her. You are her. And he owes me." The Duke's hand shook as he reached toward her, but she recoiled, ghostly fingers brushing his cheek. His eyes widened. "No, you can't take her." Elizabeth laughed, a sound like shattered crystal. The walls seemed to pulse with it. Footsteps echoed from nowhere. A cold wind whipped through the hall, carrying the faint scent of decayed roses and smoke. Every candle flickered violently, shadows writhing like living serpents. I stumbled backward into a chair, and the mirror began to reform, tiles floating into place with a soft, sinister hum. Elizabeth's eyes pierced through it, unblinking, promising that if I moved closer to the Duke or tried to escape, she would claim us both. The Duke's voice broke, trembling. I thought if I hid the truth, it would stay away. I was wrong." Her whisper followed him, curling around the words like smoke. "You hid nothing from me, William. And now, you'll pay." I clutched the arms of the chair, chest heaving. Fear slashed at my mind, yet somewhere beneath it, determination sparked. "I won't let her take me. I won't." And then, the door slammed shut behind me with a violence that rattled the entire gallery, trapping us all inside with the changeling. A scream tore through the hall, raw and jagged, not quite human. I spun around. No one was there. The Duke's eyes were wide, haunted, and he stumbled toward me, dragging me along. "She's coming, she knows our fear," he whispered, voice breaking. The portraits shifted again. Elizabeth's face twisted into an agonized scream, reaching out from the painted canvas. My hands shook, and the air grew thick, suffocating, like the house itself had exhaled decades of trapped grief. Every step we took echoed as if we were walking on bones. A sudden cold clawed at my neck, spinning me around. I crashed into a massive tapestry, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw the Duke's reflection in its folds, but it wasn't him. The figure kneeling there, hands pressed to the floor, was translucent, pale, eyes hollow. Elizabeth. She waits for the moment you falter, the Duke muttered, clutching my wrist as we backed away. Every heartbeat, every tremor, she feeds on it. The chandelier above shuddered violently, shards of crystal falling like frozen tears. The wind roared through broken windows, carrying whispers that weren't ours to understand. I could hear fragments, take, hers, body, mine, my stomach churned, nausea rising with every syllable. Elizabeth appeared suddenly, just beyond the stairwell, her veil flowing unnaturally, drifting like smoke. Her mouth opened, and the air itself seemed to shatter with the sound of her voice. You cannot hide her. You cannot protect her. She belongs to me. The Duke lunged forward, desperate, but the floor beneath him seemed to bend, sending him staggering into the wall. I grabbed his arm, fear lancing through me. No. Stay with me. Shadows peeled from the corners, forming grotesque silhouettes of brides, children, and men with hollow eyes, echoes of the lives Elizabeth had stolen, or replaced. The temperature dropped, frost creeping along the edges of the wooden panels. My breath came in ragged gasps, freezing midair. I realized the house wasn't just haunted. It was Elizabeth's body now, every surface alive with her presence, her rage, her longing. One misstep, one glance away, and she would reach through the walls, claim us both. The Duke's trembling hand found mine. We have to confront her, together, he said, voice barely audible. It's the only way she'll release you. The hall pulsed around us, shadows twisting like serpents ready to strike. And then, in a sudden silence that pressed against my ears like water, Elizabeth stepped closer, grinning, eyes glowing, and the floor beneath us cracked with a low, sinister hum. I clenched my fists, teeth grinding. This ends tonight, or we both die. The mirror shattered before my eyes, sending shards spraying across the floor like splintered screams. Elizabeth's reflection stared back at me, grinning, her eyes impossibly dark, hollowed with fury. The Duke stumbled beside me, clutching a candle that flickered violently, casting long, writhing shadows along the walls. She's closer than ever, he gasped, voice ragged. She wants you, me, too, she'll take what she was promised. A cold wind slammed into the room, extinguishing the candle. Darkness pressed against my skin, heavy, alive. I could hear whispers, my name, the Duke's name, echoing from every corner, as if the house itself had turned into a mouth, breathing us in. Elizabeth stepped from the shadows, her gown floating unnaturally, brushing the floor but never touching it. Her lips moved, forming words that echoed like knives. You cannot escape me. You are mine to claim. The Duke raised a trembling hand. I can stop her, maybe. But it'll cost me everything. His gaze met mine, full of terror and resolve. Trust me. You have to trust me. I swallowed hard, heart hammering. Do it, whatever it is. He drew an ancient dagger from his coat, its blade etched with strange, curling runes. The moment he touched it, the air vibrated, and the portraits in the hall began to weep crimson tears. Elizabeth screamed, a sound that rattled the bones in my chest. Her body twisted unnaturally, elongating and compressing, a nightmare stitched into flesh and shadow. I lunged forward, trying to keep her distracted, but the floor beneath me convulsed, throwing me into a cold, stone wall. Frost clung to my hair and clothes, and the stench of iron and decay filled my nostrils. Now, the Duke shouted, and I barely registered him throwing the dagger toward the mirror. It struck with a high, ringing shriek, sending a shockwave that rippled through the room. Elizabeth recoiled, her scream splitting into 1,000 tiny echoes, and for a fleeting second, she looked human, beautiful, terrified, trapped in her own rage. But the relief was short-lived. Shadows erupted from every corner, clawing toward us, dragging the air with them. The Duke grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the spiral staircase leading to the tower. We finished this at the source, he shouted. I glanced back. Elizabeth's eyes burned into mine, a silent promise that she wouldn't forget, wouldn't forgive, wouldn't relent. Her laughter followed us, chilling and echoing, as if it had been stitched into the very walls. Every step upward felt like wading through ice. The house moaned around us, alive, watching, waiting. And at the top, I could see it, the tower room where the wedding dress hung, still pristine, still haunted, and where our nightmare would either end, or consume us completely. A deafening crash split the tower ceiling, raining splinters down around us. Elizabeth's wail cut through the air, twisting into a scream that seemed to scrape the walls and shake the very floorboards. The Duke pushed me behind him, shielding me as shadows surged forward like a living tide, fingers of darkness clawing for flesh. "She's coming," he shouted, eyes wide, drenched in panic and determination. "If she touches you, I don't care," I yelled, gripping the nearest banister as it shuddered beneath our weight. "I'm not leaving you." Elizabeth's form shimmered, phasing in and out of reality. One moment she was a spectral figure hovering above the floor, the next, she was solid, grinning, her eyes twin pits of fury. She reached toward the Duke, and his hand shot out, dagger raised, but it barely grazed her sleeve before it dissolved into a swirl of smoke. The room trembled, chandeliers swaying violently, candle flames twisting like serpents. I felt the cold crawl up my spine as whispers filled my ears, voices begging, warning, and accusing all at once. "She was never yours, she will be reclaimed, she belongs." I stumbled forward, heart hammering, and caught sight of the wedding dress, suspended in midair, glowing faintly. Its fabric rippled as if breathing, and I realized it was a conduit, Elizabeth's anchor to this world. The Duke's gaze flicked between the dress and me, recognition dawning. "We have to sever her connection, now." I nodded, voice trembling. "Tell me what to do." He grabbed my wrist, pressing the dagger into my palm. "Focus your will. Channel it through me, through the blade, into the dress. Her anchor is her obsession, her rage. Break it, and she cannot hold form." Elizabeth screamed again, lurching toward us, shadows writhing at her heels. I felt her intent like icy fingers sliding along my bones. I raised my hand, dagger trembling, and plunged it toward the glowing dress. The moment the metal pierced the fabric, a shockwave of light and sound erupted, knocking us both to the floor. Elizabeth shrieked, the sound unhuman, high-pitched, stretching reality itself. Her form wavered, flickering violently, as if the very air refused to hold her shape. The Duke clutched my hand, pulling me upright as I felt the oppressive weight of the house lift slightly. Our struggle had forced her back. But even as she retreated, her eyes met mine, smoldering with a promise of vengeance. "This isn't over," she hissed, voice lingering in the shadows like smoke. The tower fell silent for a heartbeat, then groaned, reminding us the nightmare was far from finished. We were wounded, exhausted, but alive. The wedding dress lay crumpled, flickering faintly, the air thick with the scent of iron and frost. And above us, the final confrontation awaited. Top of form. Bottom of form. Top of form. A blood-curdling scream echoed through the chapel as Elizabeth materialized in a swirl of shadow and silk, eyes blazing with a fury that froze the blood in my veins. The Duke grabbed my arm, yanking me behind the altar as the doors slammed shut, shaking the stone walls. Candlelight flickered violently, casting grotesque shapes across the high, vaulted ceilings. She's stronger than ever," the Duke gasped, panic sharp in his voice. "If she touches you, I'm not leaving you," I shouted, wrenching my hand free. The words carried more conviction than I realized, a spark igniting in my chest, a defiance Elizabeth could feel. She hissed, a sound like grinding glass, and lunged. Shadows twisted around her, forming clawed hands that reached for us, scraping the marble floor and walls. I darted forward, eyes locked on the wedding dress lying in the center of the altar, its ghostly glow pulsing. This was her anchor, her tether to our world. The Duke shoved the ritual dagger into my hands again. "Now. Focus everything, your fear, your anger, your resolve, into the blade. Destroy her connection, or she'll take you both. Elizabeth shrieked, whipping her long hair like a whip, and the air itself seemed to warp, pulling at my very lungs. I planted my feet, gritting my teeth, and thrust the dagger into the dress. A violent shockwave of light erupted, throwing me backward. The specter of Elizabeth convulsed, shadow claws flailing, her voice a chorus of rage and anguish. The Duke lunged, slashing at the remaining shadows with desperate precision. Hold on. She's weakening. I scrambled to my knees, gripping the dagger, feeling the energy of the dress burning into my palms. Elizabeth's form flickered, a spectral figure unraveling, memories of a stolen life surfacing in her wails. You cannot deny me. Her voice cracked, echoing like shattered glass across the empty chapel. Then, with a final, agonized scream, she dissolved into a puff of icy smoke, her voice fading into the shadows. The wedding dress collapsed to the floor, lifeless, its glow extinguished. The oppressive chill lifted, the chapel felt empty, silent, finally still. The Duke slumped against a pew, breathing ragged, eyes wet with a mix of relief and disbelief. I crawled to him, gripping his arm. It's over, I whispered. He shook his head, a grim smile breaking through exhaustion. For now, he muttered. But remember, some bargains never truly end. Outside, the wind howled over Kingscote Estate, scattering the last remnants of shadow. Candle flames flickered gently, and for the first time in weeks, the air felt warm, free from the suffocating weight of vengeance. I exhaled shakily, knowing we had survived, scarred, shaken, but alive. The Duke glanced at me, eyes softening, and for the first time, our shared terror gave way to something fragile, hope. The chapel doors creaked open, moonlight spilling in. A new dawn waited, but the echoes of that night, the screams, the shadows, the changeling's fury, would linger forever.